Welcome to Biggest Spoilars, the destination for exclusive spoilers, latest updates.
General Hospital spoilers allude that Michael Corinthos' trial could be coming. It might bring Diane Miller's chance to drag Willow Kane through the slush as part of her own defense strategy. Alexis Davis was torn about whether to move forward with her ending argument knowing Willow was shamefaced. That last nanosecond ringtone substantiation really caught Alexis off guard and left her wondering if she could move the jury to bounce not shamefaced. Still, Diane induced Alexis to avoid getting disbarred again and conciliate Drew Kane since this is her only path to scout Courtroom access. As a result, Alexis prevaricated as she gave her totality and played up Michael's guilt rather of Willow's. Thanks in part to the focus Alexis gave Michael as an indispensable suspect, he's going to face some trouble when Willow's trial is over. It looks like Willow's vindication will pave the way for Michael to take some heat as Drew's possible shooter. GH suckers know Willow is the one responsible, but ADA Justine Turner will shift her attention to Michael formerly Willow's off the table. This is just what Drew's been hoping for since he'd like to see Michael land behind bars for the crime. Drew is counting on Michael getting a lengthy captivity judgment so that Willow can get full guardianship back. Whether effects get that far or not, Michael could indeed get arrested and go on trial next. However, they may let Michael face a tense trial of his own, if GH pens really want to get the maximum drama out of this plot. That could give Diane a chance to defend Michael and prove there's been a major confinement of justice. Diane may argue that the jury got it wrong and offer up substantiation that Willow should have been condemned. Maybe this could lead to the ringtone stunner coming to light in court, perhaps indeed with Kai Taylor and Trina Robinson's evidence. Trina and Kai may decide they're done guarding themselves, especially since Trina's formerly bothered that Jocelyn Jack's family could legitimately go to captivity for a crime he didn't commit. True justice wouldn't be served due to double jeopardy, but Diane could still make it known that Willow is shamefaced and that Michael must be acquitted. General Hospital spoilers say ADA Turner will go after Sonny Corinthos' son in a big way, so stick with us for updates on any trial news that might await Michael. On Moments GH, James West being rushed to the sanitarium after a fall, Laura Collins stepping in to calm rising pressures, and Jason Morgan ignoring warnings as he takes Britt Westbourne on a date. General Hospital recap for Thursday, January 15th revealed James West hurt his head, while Laura Collins played peacemaker. Also important. To Carly Spencer's consternation, Jason Morgan took Britt Westbourne on a date. James hurt his head. Lulu Spencer took James to the sanitarium after he hit his head while groaning too presto with the falconry kitties. Just as she was about to call his pater, Nathan West appeared, having been informed by Charlotte Cassadine's police companion about the incident. Isaiah Gannon also came over and took James for x-rays. While Lulu and Nathan awaited in test room, she constantly apologized for James getting hurt under her care. But Nathan assured her that he didn't hold her responsible for the accident since James had a tendency to be reckless. Nathan asked Lulu's advice about James also. With Maxie Jones down, he mentioned that he valued her bond with James. Lulu responded that Maxie had been incredibly probative during her coma, and she wanted to do anything to show her gratitude. Then, Nathan sought Lulu's advice on how to manage James's reckless jest without stifling his audacious nature, and Lulu suggested that he establish clear boundaries with his son. When James came back to the test room, Nathan spoke to him about conduct and consequences. Those included taking away his writing assignments with Cody Bell for 3 weeks as a discipline and made him apologize to Lulu. Emma and Gio took effects to the next level. Emma Scorpio Drake opened the door for Gio Palmieri in a bikini because the thermostat was conking. Since she was staying for the conservation platoon to fix the heat and couldn't go out, Gio stayed in the hot apartment to spend time with his gal. Emma expressed her enterprises about her grandmother's long absence and how lonely she felt lately. Gio assured her that he'd always be there for her. Embracing the heat of the apartment, Gio and Emma decided to make their date tropical themed, and effects hot. Up indeed more when they made love for the first time. Tracy brazened Chase about Willow at the Courtroom Hearthstone. Tracy Courtroom brazened Harrison Chase about whether he was cheating on Brooke Lynn Courtroom with Willow Kane. She indicted him of carrying erroneously during his independent disquisition. She advised him to end his fidelity to Willow before it harmed his marriage. Chase reposted that while he'd prioritized Willow over his job, it was absurd to suggest he'd cheat on his woman. Hearing their argument, Brooke Lynn came into the den and, after Chase explained Tracy's claims, she told her grandmother that she was out of line. Laura called Tracy to come to the mayor's office. At the mayor's office, Martin Gray informed Laura about the rearmost issue with Tracy and mentioned he'd told the defense about the discussion he overheard it had been between the Courtroom dame and Michael Corinthos. Laura, unfit to handle the fighting any longer, told her family he demanded to defy Tracy directly. When Tracy arrived, she and Martin started trading cuts. They were both taken suddenly when Laura expressed her desire for Tracy to do with fraud charges against Martin to end the pitfalls and blackmail. Tracy still conceded that this would lead to Ronnie Bard's execution, which her family would no way forgive. Laura played peacemaker, but she snappily came snarky again, stating she'd deal with Martin her own way. Laura, still trying to intervene, contended with Tracy to find a way to get along with Martin, as she demanded her friend and didn't want to be caught in their conflict presently. Tracy agreed to an armistice but advised Martin that if he ever harmed her family again, she'd avenge fiercely, anyhow of her passions for Laura. Before leaving, Tracy remarked that having Laura as a family was the stylish thing for Martin. Alone with Laura, Martin admitted he knew he was lucky, and she responded that while she loved him, she wouldn't help him if he went after Tracy again. Chase explained effects to Brooke Lynn and they made up at the Quartermains. Chase vented to Brooke Lynn about Tracy criminating him of cheating, which he set up unthinkable since he'd no way be treacherous. Brooke Lynn, who didn't suppose her grandmother was wrong, told Chase she trusted him but felt he was eyeless to how Willow was using him. Upset by this, Chase cried that he couldn't ignore Willow's innocence and abominated injustice. Brooke Lynn argued that Willow was his concern and prompted Chase not to lose himself defending his partner. Chase assured her that nothing would come between them, saying she was his top precedence, to which Brooke Lynn responded that he was her safe haven. Appreciating their honesty and tough addresses, they reaffirmed their love and participated a kiss. Jason took Britt on an axe-throwing date, important to Carly's consternation at the throwing club. Carly and Jocelyn Jacks groaned around their recent lives. When Jason arrived with Britt, Carly was unhappy to see her stylish friend on a date with the doctor. After telling Britt that Carly's opinion didn't matter, Jason spoke to Carly and said who he spent time with wasn't her concern. Carly cried that Britt wasn't safe for him, and if he got hurt saving her, Danny Morgan would lose his only parent. Jason said Britt was complicated but a good person. Carly felt Commodity was off with Britt. Carly combated that she saw Britt save Jocelyn's life, but Commodity was out, and Britt was going back to her old ways. Ultimately, Carly agreed to leave Britt alone for the night. Meanwhile, Britt joked to Jocelyn that no bone was good enough for Jason except Carly and asked Joss to keep her mama quiet. When Jocelyn asked why she should help, Britt hovered to tell Carly that Joss was a WSB agent, so Joss agreed to adjudicate her. Britt also asked where S. Von Nash was, and Joss explained he was reassigned since Jack Brennan always got his way. Carly upset over Jason to Jocelyn returning to her table with Jocelyn. Carly conveyed to her son that her want was for Jason to find happiness, yet Britt posed a threat and was trouble. Jocelyn pondered if Carly, having been correct about Jack, asked to be right about Britt as well. Carly maintained that she and Jack had resolved their problems and now that everything was back on course, Jack wouldn't deceive her again. Joss fitted that intelligencers frequently prevaricated, egging Carly to interrogate how Jocelyn had acquired similar knowledge about spies. Jocelyn reminded her mama she'd dated a asset. Joss reminded her mama that she had formerly been involved with a asset, and Vaughn had preliminarily mentioned that indeed though he didn't intend to lie, the verity was no longer his to expose. Originally, she believed he was indifferent towards her, Joss continued, but she came to understand that the pain he felt in lying to her was a testament to how much he truly watched. Returning to her relationship with Jack, Carly participated that Joss didn't need to be concerned about her and Jack, as she was completely apprehensive of who he was. Jocelyn looked at her mama like she wasn't so sure she knew who Brennan really was. The mama and son continued their girls' night as across the club, Britt and Jason started throwing axes. Jason and Britt continued their date across the bar. Jason and Britt engaged in sportful flirting as they shared in their friendly dismissal throwing competition. In an unconcerned moment, she proposed to stake a kiss for the victor of the forthcoming round. When Britt surfaced victorious, her horse laugh filled the air as she teasingly declared that she'd inform Jason when she was ready to claim her prize. With that, Britt headed over to the bar to cost them some fresh drinks, while Jason took his turn. He threw in dismissal that landed impeccably on the point, having designedly thrown the game to ensure Britt's palm. Jack got a visit from his boss Jack's master, WSB director Ross Cullum, told him that Anna had faded during her WSB charge on Caesar Faison's project. When Jack offered to find Anna, Cullum said substantiation showed she hadn't been captured but had left on her own. Jack set up this strange since Anna would no way abandon her granddaughter Emma, but Cullum noted that Diane didn't suppose easily when Faison was involved. Jack also asked what evidence the WSB had that Anna was missing, and Cullum explained that the print Jack wanted him to check was fake. Cullum supposed Diane a dead end and told Jack it was time to shift focus. Cullum said he was there to fix effects Jack had been doing since Jack hadn't been open about his fieldwork with the advanced ups. Cullum was transferred to Port Charles to fix effects and learn what Brennan knew about Faison's network in the megacity. Jack explained that he discovered Faison's design was connected to Jen Sidwell and an unknown mate, a missing professor involved in the exploration, and the return of Faison's two presumed dead children. Unsatisfied with propositions rather of results, Cullum indicted Jack of hiding information and demanded to know if he'd means on Ladle Island. Jack hypercritically declined to answer, stating he was conservative about leaks in the charge, especially after Agent Colette Moreau's disloyalty, and he wouldn't partake that information. The winds of justice in Port Charles were shifting, and everyone could feel it in their bones. What began as a courtroom battle over Willow Kane was quietly transforming into something far bigger, an approaching storm centered on Michael Corinthos. The whispers in the hallways, the glances exchanged in crowded rooms, and the hushed phone calls behind closed doors all pointed to one undeniable truth: the trial that had consumed the town might only be the opening act. At the heart of it all stood Alexis Davis, a woman torn between her conscience and her survival. The ringtone evidence that surfaced at the 11th hour still echoed in her mind like a bell she couldn't unhear. It was the kind of detail that could shatter a case wide open, the kind of proof that should have turned the jury's attention squarely toward Willow's guilt. Yet Alexis found herself trapped in a corner she never expected to occupy. One wrong move could cost her more than a verdict, it could cost her everything she'd fought to rebuild. Diane Miller, sharp-eyed and relentless, saw the danger immediately. She didn't sugarcoat the reality. If Alexis pressed forward with the truth, she risked more than professional embarrassment. Disbarment loomed like a shadow, and with it, the end of her path back into the fragile web of alliances that kept her close to Scout Quartermain. Drew Kane held the key to that door, and Diane knew exactly how much Alexis needed it to stay open. So, when the moment came to deliver her closing argument, Alexis did the unthinkable. She swallowed the truth, dressed a lie in polished words, and pointed the spotlight at Michael instead of Willow. The courtroom felt colder as her voice rang out, carefully weaving doubt around Sonny Corinthos' son, painting him as a more likely culprit in Drew's shooting. Every sentence was a step away from justice and a step closer to a future she wasn't sure she could live with. The jury listened. The town held its breath. And when the verdict came down, Willow walked free. But freedom, as Port Charles knew all too well, rarely came without a price. The moment Willow's name was cleared, the target shifted. ADA Justine Turner wasted no time. Her gaze locked onto Michael with renewed intensity, her strategy recalibrated in an instant. Where Willow had once stood, Michael now faced the full force of the state's suspicion. Drew, watching from the sidelines, allowed himself a rare, satisfied smile. This was exactly what he'd been waiting for. In his mind, justice for his own suffering meant seeing Michael behind bars. He believed a conviction would give Willow the clean slate she needed to reclaim full custody, to rebuild her life without the shadow of the past. Whether the plan would unfold the way he imagined remained uncertain, but one thing was clear: Michael's days of walking freely through Port Charles might be numbered. Rumors spread like wildfire. An arrest seemed imminent. A second trial loomed on the horizon. And with it came the possibility of Diane stepping back into the courtroom, this time on Michael's side. Those who knew her best could already picture the fire in her eyes as she prepared to challenge the very system she'd once helped manipulate. The idea of exposing a miscarriage of justice thrilled her. If the jury had been misled, she intended to prove it. The ringtone evidence, buried and ignored, threatened to resurface. And this time it might not be alone. Whispers suggested that Kai Taylor and Trina Robinson were wrestling with their own consciences. Trina, especially, couldn't shake the fear that Jocelyn Jack's brother might pay for a crime he didn't commit. The weight of that possibility pressed down on her, pushing her closer to the edge of a decision that could change everything. Double jeopardy might shield Willow from another trial, but it couldn't silence the truth. Diane, if given the chance, would make sure the courtroom heard it anyway. The battle lines were being redrawn, and Port Charles braced itself for another war of words, evidence, and broken loyalties. While the legal world churned with tension, life in the town continued, sometimes gently, sometimes with a crash. At the ice rink, laughter turned to panic in a heartbeat. James West, always too fearless for his own good, pushed himself too hard, skating faster than his small body could manage. One wrong move sent him tumbling, and the sharp sound of his head hitting the ice cut through the air. Lulu Spencer didn't hesitate. She scooped him up, her heart pounding as she rushed him to the hospital, guilt already creeping in despite knowing accidents happened. Fate, as it often did in Port Charles, intervened. Nathan West appeared at the hospital, alerted by Charlotte Cassadine's police escort. His worry for his son was clear, but so was his steady calm. When Isaiah Gannon took James for x-rays, Nathan stayed close, offering Lulu reassurance she desperately needed. He didn't blame her. He knew James' adventurous streak better than anyone. While they waited, their conversation drifted to Maxie Jones, absent but deeply missed. Lulu spoke warmly of the bond she shared with her, of the gratitude she felt for Maxie's unwavering support during her long coma. Nathan, listening carefully, asked for advice. He wanted to guide James without crushing the spark that made him who he was. When James returned, bruised but smiling, Nathan knelt down to his level. He spoke about choices and consequences, about how even brave kids had to learn when to slow down. The punishment, no writing lessons with Cody Bell for a few weeks, was met with a pout, but James understood. His apology to Lulu was sincere, and the moment felt like a small victory in a world full of much bigger battles. Across town, in an apartment that felt more like a tropical escape than a city dwelling, Emma Scorpio Drake and Gio Palmieri found comfort in each other's company. A broken thermostat had turned the space into a sweltering haven, and instead of complaining, they laughed it off, pretending they were miles away on some sun-soaked island. Emma opened up about her grandmother's long absence and the loneliness that had settled in her chest. Gio listened, promising he wasn't going anywhere. Their evening unfolded with warmth and closeness, a tender milestone in their young relationship, marked by trust, vulnerability, and the quiet promise of being there for each other no matter what storms lay ahead. Back at the Courtroom mansion, the air was anything but warm. Tracy Courtroom, sharp as ever, confronted Harrison Chase with accusations that cut deep. She questioned his loyalty, his motives, and even his marriage, suggesting his concern for Willow crossed lines it shouldn't. Chase fired back, hurt and furious, insisting that while he believed in justice, he would never betray Brooke Lynn. When Brooke Lynn entered the room, the tension thickened. Tracy's words hung heavy, but Brooke Lynn stood her ground, defending her marriage while admitting she believed Willow was using Chase's sense of honor. The argument between husband and wife was raw but honest. In the end, they found their way back to each other, reaffirming that no outside force, no matter how loud or persistent, would come between them. Meanwhile, at the mayor's office, Laura Collins found herself playing referee once again. Martin Gray and Tracy's feud had reached a boiling point, and Laura was tired of being caught in the middle. When Tracy arrived, the insults flew, but Laura cut through the noise with a bold suggestion: push forward with fraud charges and end the blackmail once and for all. Tracy's reaction was complicated. She knew what it would mean for her family, for old wounds that would reopen. She agreed to a truce, but not without a warning to Martin that echoed with the promise of fierce retaliation if her loved ones were ever threatened again. When she left, Laura and Martin shared a quiet moment of understanding. Love, even in this town, came with boundaries. As night fell, the throwing club buzzed with a different kind of energy. Jason Morgan and Britt Westbourne arrived for a date that was anything but ordinary. Carly Spencer watched from across the room, her concern etched on her face. She confronted Jason, warning him that Britt was dangerous, that getting too close could cost him, and their son, everything. Jason stood firm. He saw Britt as complicated, not cruel. Good, not bad. The tension between them crackled, but eventually Carly stepped back, agreeing to give them space for the night. Britt, never one to miss an opportunity for humor, teased Jocelyn, hinting that no one would ever truly be good enough for Jason in Carly's eyes. A playful threat about revealing secrets kept Joss in line, and the night moved on. Carly and Jocelyn retreated to their table, where mother and daughter talked about trust, about spies, and about the complicated nature of loving someone who lived in the shadows. Jocelyn's words lingered, leaving Carly to wonder just how well she really knew the man she'd let back into her life. Across the room, Jason and Britt turned their date into a game, throwing axes and trading playful challenges. When Britt won a round, she claimed a future kiss as her prize, her laughter lightening the mood. Jason, ever the strategist, let her have the victory, enjoying the rare moment of ease between them. But peace in Port Charles never lasted long. Elsewhere, Jack Brennan received a visit that would change everything. His boss, WSB Director Ross Cullum, brought troubling news. Anna Devane had vanished during a mission tied to Caesar Faison's shadowy projects. The official line claimed she left on her own, but Jack knew Anna better than that. She would never abandon her granddaughter without a reason. Cullum pressed Jack for answers, accusing him of hiding assets and information, particularly about Spoon Island. Jack refused to reveal his hand, citing fears of leaks and betrayal within their own ranks. The standoff between them was tense, a clash of authority and conviction. As Cullum left, the weight of the situation settled in. Anna was missing. Faison's network was still out there. And Port Charles, already teetering on the edge of legal and emotional chaos, was about to be pulled into yet another dangerous game. Encouraging words, angry threats, whispered promises, and unspoken fears all wove together in the lives of those who called this town home. From courtroom battles that could redefine justice to quiet hospital rooms where a father taught his son about consequences, every moment felt like part of a larger reckoning. And as the next trial loomed and secrets threatened to surface, one thing was certain: in Port Charles, no one walked away unchanged. The baptism had begun, not with water, but with fire.